Hello on the Rockers. On this episode, it's all about filmmaking with banker turned filmmaker. Myles Yaksich is here, and my guest co-host, documentarian Aaron Bear, and me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass and let the drinks begin. It's On the Rocks.
Thank you for being
Boulevard.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Buttons and bows and pantyhose on the Rocks podcast, the place where we're too glam to give a damn. Girl, have you seen all of this drama going on with Balenciaga? So they inexplicably greenlit and released a photo ad campaign featuring children, which I'm not a fan of to begin with, but holding stuffed teddy bears in bondage. What? It received so much negative press. Even Kim Kardashian took to social media saying she does not condone it. She even called them to say, what the hell happened? Like, who greenlit this? And now Balenciaga is suing the production company that put the campaign together for millions of dollars. They still saw it before they released it, so what the hell? Anyway, that's your weekly drama. You're welcome. Like us on Instagram and TikTok at On The Rocks On Air, and on Facebook, On The Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email, book me for a pride, wedding, funeral, quinceañera, film Q&A, bris. I don't care. I'll show up. I'll host. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. The show's presented by Straw Hat Media. You can watch and or listen to our now over 300 episodes at ontherocksradioshow.com. You can watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch, streaming with pride on SVTV, and on Channel 31 on the East Coast. Hello, East Coast. All right, let's get the show on the road. My guest co-host, returning to the show, Aaron Bear, director-producer, known for Yes, I Am, The Ric Weiland Story, Finding Kim, Potato Dreams of America. He has directed and produced numerous award-winning feature-length documentaries, music videos, and commercials. His influences as a filmmaker are as varied as his interests as a person and range from the oft-maligned to the universally lauded.
I hired a copywriter to...
I'm charging you per long word. That's all I'm doing. But and I know this from personal experience. He's become a good friend. Unconventional and offbeat on one hand, and drunk on the other. We have fun together. This Thursday on World AIDS Day at Harmony Gold Theater in Los Angeles, he will be screening his doc, The Ric Weiland Story, benefiting AmFAR. It's executive produced by World of Wonder, of course we know from Drag Race fame, and it is narrated by my ex-boyfriend, Zachary Quinto. I wish. Starring Bill Gates, another ex-boyfriend I wish I had. What's wrong with me? The doc chronicles queer pioneer and one of the founders of Microsoft, Ric Weiland. Rick helped focus and organize their early successes. It made him extremely wealthy and influential at a very early age, but he never felt comfortable with his wealth, and it's a story that we don't know a lot about. He felt that he didn't deserve it, so we're going to talk about some of the themes that are going on with that. And so he turned to philanthropy, which is responsible for some of the biggest LGBTQ nonprofits we have today. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Rick was a very, very complex thinker.
Always a little bit of a hard guy to figure out. He didn't have something to prove to you, but he was an incredible programmer.
Computers are the art form I relate to.
Lifestyle of homosexuals has triggered an epidemic.
All of my friends and colleagues are dying. How can I help?
He became such a strategic activist.
He was one of the top donors to these organizations.
If I told him that I loved him, that was upsetting to him. He didn't feel like he deserved love.
My days are very empty.
He was contemplating ending his despair.
Rick was pivotal in the information age and the gay rights movement. We wouldn't live in the world that we live in today without the contribution that Rick made.
Yes, I am. The Ric Weiland Story. Please welcome film creator, Mr. Aaron Bear.
Thank you, Alexander.
Right.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, we had fun last time. We had a lot of vodka last time, but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and do you remember there was a haunted doll on?
We had Stephanie
on
the haunted
panel?
doll.
Yeah.
She was sitting right here, actually.
She was sitting right next to me, yeah.
Yeah. She's come to the studio about 4 times.
The haunted doll?
Yeah, the haunted doll. It scares me every time, but we love to have her. And we have to pour her a drink. Otherwise, the lights
She's pissed.
blow out. No, she gets really jealous. I took her to the Abbey with her owner, who's a witch, like a practicing witch. And if you don't pay attention, her things literally happen. Like spilled drinks, shattering lights. It's insane, but it's true. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about let's talk about the documentary. So when I first got a pitch about you and the documentary, God, it's probably 2 years ago now at this point. I was like, documentary about somebody from Microsoft? I had no clue, and I was like, okay. And then I watched the first few minutes of the documentary, and I was like, holy crap, how come I don't know this story? How come more people don't know the Ric Weiland story?
Well, Rick didn't want to be known, and that was that's what he sort of stood on the foundation of, being very private and giving in a sense that where he just was trying to give back to the community without being in the limelight, without trying to be famous, and that's very rare. I feel like within the giving world is someone who doesn't want a ton of accolades for their giving.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah, I mean, but it's very true, and that is at the core why most people don't know Rick. I mean, you may know him from if you are in the philanthropic world, you might have heard his name, but truly a person who has changed the world. And one of the many reasons I had sort of the same when I started to make the film. I was approached to make the film by one of his friends who appears in the movie, and hearing about someone who started Microsoft and the reasons why, but the deeper I dug into Rick's life, the more I realized what an impact he had on human rights, queer rights, AIDS and HIV research, environmental rights. I mean, really, the list goes on. And I kind of fell in love with him in that way, but a very complicated person too, and a very private person. Which initially I thought, I'm gonna roll in and pull a bunch of clips of his interviews, and no, the guy never gave an interview, never gave even a press interview. So it was very much like cracking open a cold case, and you follow the breadcrumb with a documentary. Sometimes it leads to nowhere, and eventually I started to find the right people and being plugged in the right places, and I kind of feel like I threw the kitchen sink at it. Like, I did reenactments and I did a voiceover and I did animations and stuff like that, and somehow it all works.
Well, and a lot of the voiceover is from his actual writing, which you were able
Yes.
to procure, which I think is the meatiest part of this whole piece.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. Along the way, a lot of his stuff was donated to Stanford for within the Stanford archive. So I got to go down and dig through these amazing archives at Stanford, and I would love to say that I was this, brilliant filmmaker of like this was all planned, but it was kind of eerie in a way because I was kind of hitting my head against the wall, struggling with how do I make this come to life, and I open up this box and it's all of his journals, and I start pulling them out and reading them, and this is his voice. It's his personal voice. He may have never given an interview, however, here it was. And then I had the task of, okay, how do I read all of these? And so digitized everything, then read a daily journal dating back from 1975 all the way up until his death. And then how do I place that within a movie? And how do I present this within the film? So all of that is, it all happened.
Well, and I told you this is very honest. I'm not the biggest fan of documentaries.
You did.
Number one, because my attention span is that of like a gnat, and I'm just like, but you put it together so accessible. It's so accessible to people that might not be into documentaries, that might not be into tech. Because it's a lot of tech talk. I didn't realize that Microsoft was so reliant on somebody from our community. No clue. But you also made it. Entertaining is the wrong kind of word because it's not like, but it's so engaging and it's beautifully done.
Thank you for saying so. And that's all. When you're making a film, and Myles, I know you probably have felt the same way. It's like even if you're making a very serious documentary, you're making a movie. Like you're making a movie, and you have to always remember that you not entertain is the right word, but you have to keep people engaged, and you want to keep them thinking along the way, and how you craft that narrative, and how you, even within a true story, it's important. I mean, obviously you've watched a ton of boring documentaries, so it's a very real thing when you are making a film.
I want to know, for people that might not necessarily know, what are some of the biggest contributions that he has made to the nonprofit LGBTQ world?
GLAAD, one of the largest. AMFAR, who has been incredibly supportive of the film and of trying to really give it a lift in terms of visibility and of Ric. One of the things I don't really cover in the film, but something that was near and dear to Ric's heart was the Nature Conservancy in Seattle. And still continues on today. He gave a ton of money to Stanford, and in many various different departments as well. But you see the end of the movie. I put all of his giving, and it kind of just when you think it's like, oh, it's done. No, it goes on and on and on and on. And he set it up in a way that it will continue to make money forever, which is it's brilliant.
What I love what you covered is you covered all facets of his life. So yes, he gave so much money to nonprofits. He was integral in helping Microsoft become what it was. But you also talk about the darker side to him. You talk about him as a human being, the bumps, the bruises, the faults, the failings. But then also like the fun part, he used to go and like to party. And, I like how you made it so natural, because as we talk more about mental health, we talk more about the reality of us as gay men, as an LGBTQ community. We have to learn how to weave that into our normal life. We're not, even our biggest pride heroes are still human beings. And I think you captured that so well.
Thank you. And that was something I was learning, or at least for myself, along the way of how to craft this, but also, I didn't want to make a fluff piece. I didn't want to make the Time Life version of Ric's life, or the Wikipedia version of Ric's life. Yeah. To really showcase him in a way that was authentic and true, you have to show the good, bad, and ugly, and we all have duality in our lives, and we're all different people at different times in our life. And Ric was somebody that, he was inspiring, but he was also, a real human being that was always just trying to survive, and someone who just also suffered a great deal emotionally and mentally. But luckily he did have an amazing group of people that loved him, and including Bill Gates and including Paul Allen. Also fascinating, though, while I was making this, you're connecting with people, you're doing these fundraising parties and stuff like that, and I would meet people that only knew Ric in a certain light, and I would show them different aspects of the film, and I would almost see this in a way like a recoil of like, that was not the Ric that I knew. And whether it was like the party thing, or dressing up, or going out, or being extremely gay, he hid himself in these interesting boxes that, again, we all do in some regard. But Ric did it whether it was the time or the circumstance, he did it whether to protect himself. There's a lot to unpack there.
Well, and we're gonna talk about boxes and labels when we talk with Myles and some of the things that he covers in the film. And I think we're trying to get away from being a box so that a gay film is not just a gay film, and it's not just about this. It's not just about the AIDS epidemic. It's not all about coming out. It's not just about the sex. Let's get out of all of our boxes, from the conservative side to the liberal side, and let's unpack that. It takes a lot to be us. We're not just one thing.
You're conservative?
I can be.
Oh.
But
yeah. I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, so, well, we're going to talk about a lot about filmmaking. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad to be honored taking part in the Q&A. I'm going to keep it light, I guess. How?
Light is, light.
I have some Microsoft jokes. I'm just kidding. Can you imagine? The audience would be like, cricket. I want to know how you got Bill Gates to say yes, and did you get like 10 minutes with him, or?
It's one of those things that people always ask me, and all you have to do is ask. The worst they can say is no. And he said yes. But, I mean, this dates back to them a friendship. They met in high school.
Yeah.
They met in high school. They were kids.
Some of the pictures that you show in the film are just astounding. It's like,
Bill Gates is a child.
He's like a little nerdy kid.
A baby genius. Yeah. I mean, they all were, but kids. And, you figure out this thing and you're suddenly thrust into this limelight and money and all the things that come with that. But not necessarily like Hollywood fame. It's like tech fame.
And it's so unique because tech fame at that time, what did that even mean?
Nothing. It's
right.
Yeah, it was brand new. They created it.
Yeah. All right, a lot to unpack. Let's welcome our other guest of honor today, Myles Yaksich, born in Canada, lived in Asia for over a decade. He brings into his films his experiences from his travels and pulls from his life, and as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Currently lives in LA. Thank God he's back to bring us some films, to pursue filmmaking full time. He's already had 2 successful short films, Poppies and Aaron, both of which are streamable on Amazon currently, with both securing awards from multiple film festivals, including Best Director, Writer, and Best Film. Albatross, which premiered at the Sedona Film Festival, also received over 4 awards across 3 continents, and I think it's gathering more and more as time goes on, including Best Indie Film, Best Script, and Best Director. Albatross, we're going to talk about the themes. It's been compared to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It's pretty dark. As dark as it is, it's beautifully filmed and it's beautifully told. It's captivating. And there's some fun little tidbit history behind that, too. So we are going to talk about that. He's currently working on 2 new scripts, which will be announced soon. One of which is about a husky Latino podcaster with a very sultry voice who becomes a superhero. Can't wait for that one. Kidding. Please welcome Myles Yaksich.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I've been wanting to chime in for everything that Aaron was talking about.
We're definitely going to talk about it. And it's so funny. You and I have few similarities, such as being in the banking for a very long time and then being like, this is not for us.
Not at all.
But you were first kind of inspired by Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg, as a lot of filmmakers are. What was it about that film? Because it wasn't just about the CGI that you were like, I love. What was it particularly about that kind of filmmaking that inspired you?
Well, I'm a dinosaur junkie through and through from birth. So
I used to be that 7 and 8-year-old that would go to lectures with like leading paleontologists with the books like this, and I would have read through them all and like my sketches and everything. I was obsessed with dinosaurs. Not like just fun obsessed. Like I was obsessed. We have a lot in common.
Yeah.
We're both adorable.
Want to be superheroes? So I think it was really like, I was very young when that film came out. It was the idea that it can be real. I think before that, watching movies that had dinosaurs or dragons and those types of things, they were very kind of like fake in cartoony fantasy. Yeah. And when Jurassic Park came out, it was like, wow, this is real. I believe it. I didn't understand yet that it's CGI. And I think kind of from there, it was just like, you can do anything in a movie to feel real. And like, I love reading. I'm a big reader, but that's creating it in your head. And this is almost like seeing it.
Well, I think you said in an interview, one of the interviews that you did, you talked about the actual time dinosaurs were on screen was not like the big time you think of Jurassic Park. You think, oh, it's all dinosaurs. And it's like, no, the story was told without having to actually see it.
Yeah, because it was so expensive. And this was more like as I got interested in film and doing research about it and like looking at Jurassic Park as a film and not just as the experience of watching a movie. I think it's like a 2 hour and 7 minute or 2 hour and 12 minute, and they're on screen for 17 minutes that
That's
you see
insane.
a dinosaur. So it's like the whole film, I feel like it's all about like this action and these dinosaurs, but it's really like suspense and building up to these reveals that really pay off. And now I think we're so like saturated and like every shot is showing you everything that it doesn't mean anything anymore.
That I can't tell you how many times I've said that. Even in trailers, they show the whole damn movie. It's like, oh, what I really noticed from Poppies and Albatross especially was it's told so lyrically, but you're not just telling it how it is. There's a lot of subtlety. There's a lot of you make the audience go on the journey along with you, and so you're not just putting it out there and saying this is it. And so the end for Albatross was pretty good climax.
Oh, good.
Well, so wait. Do we have a clip of this, or what is the film about? I haven't got a chance to see it.
This is a great opportunity. Let's take a trailer at Albatross, which is Myles's first full feature debut after his 2 successful short films. Albatross, again, critically acclaimed, being compared to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Beautifully shot, and I'll tell you a little fun fact after the trailer. Let's take a peek.
The couple is followed by an albatross. A large bird. A good omen.
You must be the Millers. Come in. Lloyd won't be long. He's just finishing treating a patient.
I'm in session, Carol.
They're here.
Who?
The Millers. Dinner, remember? Tradition rests upon fear.
The fear of change.
I'm not scared.
Well, you should be.
There's a natural order to things
So that's what you learned in medical school.
in life.
We're cutting the evening short.
What happened?
I wanted you to hear it from me, not her.
She'll never understand your struggle, Thomas. It's tough being on the outside, looking in.
These aren't our people.
And we don't ask just anyone, you know.
The club is the foundation of our community.
Very exclusive.
Sorry.
Let's go back.
So much of our life is waiting for flowers to bloom. If I can make them bloom forever, why shouldn't I?
That is Albatross by Myles.
Looks gorgeous.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And again, a lot of first-time movies come across my desk, and I'm like, oh, good, another LGBTQ filmmaker, because we know, and I'm very honest on the show, it's not always known to be the best quality genre. And then I see your first short film, Poppies, and again, I have to say, it's so beautifully crafted with the music, with the visuals. Albatross is a period piece, and I think I've asked you in another interview, I was like, what does a young whippersnapper know about this period piece and be able to capture it because it's not done kitschy? You know, there's when there's period pieces and it's like, it's in the 50s. But it's so, again, I keep using the word beautiful, but that's the word that I have to describe it. How were you able to saturate this kind of period so well?
I think when I went into writing it, it is a film, like a COVID film, so it came about totally because
It wasn't
of
supposed to be your next
COVID.
film or your first
No,
film.
I was
Yeah.
I was working on Poppies into a feature. So this totally came about because of COVID. And I think when I went into writing it, I wasn't thinking of it necessarily as a period piece. Because I'm kind of tired of seeing period films that are really portrayed through a specific lens of, you know, an objective and kind of a thematic mission. So I was just trying to write a film about topics that I found still relevant. And then I think, like, artistically, I like period things. And I believe that, like, periods have always been diverse. Like, different time periods have always been diverse, but we just don't see it. And so I was, like, thinking about just taking these issues I think are still relevant, still current, still things we need to talk about, and exploring what they would have been like 50 years ago or 70 years ago, and feel the impact of that, because a lot's changed, but at the same time, this is something that's kind of mentioned.
Well,
in
do
the
you
movie.
have? I mean, do you have like obviously a brilliant production designer? Because this is doing something like this would be easy to really mess up.
And for being
did the production design.
I mean, this is crazy. And being such a fresh filmmaker, you know, a lot of first people's films.
Yeah, but I worked with the same. So in terms of like building the team out, the cinematographer is this same cinematographer I've been working with, Dylan Shapshay, and he's phenomenal. So like we've built a really good rapport through the 2 short films and this feature and a couple other projects we've done together. And then I also look at film as like the whole layering component. So like you commented on the music. Nicholas Pike is our composer. He's incredibly talented. I got connected with him on Poppies, and he and I have also been like working together throughout this trajectory to build like a soundscape and musical scape
There's a lot of texture to it.
complement the film, but it's also like period friendly, but it has some kind of elements because film is set in 1959. It's on the verge of going into like space exploration, so it's like I want something that kind of is like this competition between like kind of like old school and old school 60s, where it's like there's this new thing coming.
But it really had kind of like that Betty Davis type of movie lushness to it as well. It's like this is, you know.
Yeah, indulgent. It's
Yes,
gorgeous.
yeah,
I want
yeah.
a film that feels like a story. I want to feel like I'm reading a bedtime book. I want to think it's, yeah.
Where did you shoot it?
Oh, this is the fun fact.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna tell. So Myles left Asia to come to LA, and then COVID. He was like, "Oh well, crap! I guess I'll go home for a little bit." Went home to Canada. They filmed the majority of this film in this beautiful estate, but it's not the first time he filmed there. When he was young, how old were you? Were you like 8th grade?
When I did the
murder mystery?
Sixth in the 7th grade. 7th grade.
So Myles and his family filmed like a murder mystery film in that house, and now he's filmed his first feature film debut in that house.
Okay. So back up.
Snap!
Yeah. No. So walk me through that.
Well, I've always liked film, and I went into banking as like the scenic route to get back to film. So I did like my first short film, which hasn't been seen anywhere. When I was in 7th grade, I did and this is how my 7th grade mind was. What did I want to film? I wanted to film a 1930s murder mystery.
Wow.
That is horrible, but wonderful. So yeah, we filmed that it's my childhood home. And then coming full circle, it was very nostalgic. The DP and I, Dylan, we watched, the first film was called The Italian Rooster. And we watched that the night before our first day of shooting to like just get pumped and in the mood.
Yeah.
To
Where
shoot this
can we watch it, Myles?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. It literally is everywhere. I think I have a picture of all the outlets.
All the platforms and stuff. But Apple is probably the best, and then Amazon. Yeah, a bunch of platforms.
And we know how important casting is, and I have to say Albatross was so wonderfully cast because you were in the COVID environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you would have these mass auditions, but everybody was so complimentary to not just the piece, but to each other. The chemistry was built in the first few seconds.
Oh, it's great to hear. Great to hear.
But let's talk about this transition to banking, because I did it myself, and I was like, I'm going to be in musical theater, and the banking just happened. But you actually left Canada to go to Asia for a decade to be an investment banker.
Yeah, more or less.
Well, tell us the scoop, girl. That's why you're here.
No. So I've always been into the arts. So like painting, I danced, did competitive dance for a long time, and gymnastics.
You did?
Yeah.
What kind of dance was like your best?
I did contemporary and acrobatics and like lyrical and jazz and tap and all that
I love
fun stuff.
I did tap terribly.
Yeah. And then I think just family pressure that I built up in my head. I don't think it was necessarily real, but I felt like it was real, and to be a bit more conservative and go have a more like maybe professional type of thing. So I studied finance and economics, and then I moved to Singapore and got a job in investment banking, and then kind of moved into private equity. And probably had it not been for like the novelty of living overseas, I probably wouldn't have done it for so long.
Is that what inspired you to do it? Well,
I think it's like I got a lot of opportunities, cultural exploration. Like had I got into a bank in downtown Toronto or in New York, I probably would have been like after a year, yeah, I hate this.
Walk me through a day of what?
I mean, I was so junior. A day, very structured. So like I'd wake up 5:30.
Put on that suit.
Yeah, go to the gym, have my suit in the office.
I put on the suit. I didn't go to the gym.
I'd go to the gym first, get my breakfast, go to the office, like work all day. You're just doing Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint decks, buying companies, like which company should our client buy, and like present them options. So you're looking for small businesses or medium-sized businesses that can be bought, and then like work until 7 or 8, then go for dinner, and then come back.
Clients? We always have to take clients out too. That was a huge part of it.
Yeah, and then come back to the office and work until like 12 or 1, and then go home and sleep for 4 hours and go back to work.
4 hours? What was
there was many hours a week, but the money kept coming in, so you were just like, well, I guess
yeah, and like I said, it's like I was living overseas and like traveling on weekends. I could go to Thailand or Hong Kong or something and like see a whole new place, which that's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, what was the moment when you realized, hey, this sucks? And
many moments, but I was going to do my MBA, so I was going to start my MBA in the September, and I moved here in August. But like like in July, I was just thinking, why am I going to do an MBA and entrench myself further into this career that I don't like? Like I've always felt up till that point, I can pursue anything I want to, especially like creatively and with film. If I want to go make a movie, I can go make a movie. And I have that kind of naivety about me maybe sometimes.
Well, you did it.
Impulsive, but it's like at that moment when it was gonna like do a master's program, I was gonna do it in the States, which is very expensive. It was like, if I do this, I can't just like 100%. Nope. And then that was, I think, like having a week or two of self-reflection, making a very impulsive decision to drop out of the MBA program and not do it.
Now, how did your family kind of react? Because I know your family was supportive when you were younger in the arts.
Yeah, so they were fine. It was the type of thing I'm very communicative with my family and ask them a lot of input in what I'm doing, and that was a decision that it was just like, no, I'm just not gonna like ask them because they'll be probably scared and want something more reliable or something as a career. So I told them after, and that's kind of like what I tend to do when it's bigger things that are maybe more meaningful to me, rather than asking for their advice or input. It's like I will just decide to do it and then tell them I've decided to do it.
Now, having seen Albatross at so many film festivals and watching the trailer, after the fact and revisiting it, how do you think you've changed the most since you yelled cut, printed it, and showed it at its first? How have you grown since then, being able to talk about the film and being able to enjoy kind of the success of the film?
Well, that's such a like great life of being a creative and making a film, because you make the film multiple times through the process, right? Writing and then shooting it and then editing it is like kind of the standard thing. But now that it's out there, it's really great to experience it with audiences. So like I like when we have theatrical screenings and I can hear just even breathing and like the pace of people's breath and like, or the laughter and when they are laughing.
There's some uncomfortable laughter.
I love when people laugh in places where you didn't expect them to laugh.
Totally. Yeah. And it's just like, and you can feel like when an audience gets it, because this is a film too, that it's like, if it's not your cup of tea, I don't think it's you're not in it type of thing. And if you if you are in it, I think you really like it. It has a polarizing effect that way. And it's great to also see that and to feel that and have people ask questions, because it's a type of film that is a conversation starter, hopefully.
Well, and it really deals with racism, and it deals with classism, and it deals, with gay themes. Although I wouldn't categorize it as a gay film.
No, and I never wanted or saw myself as making like a quote unquote gay film, because I think our world is so full of diversity and we interact in a diverse and inclusive space. So I want a film that kind of like has representation. I think that's important, of course, and also like inclusion. So I think it's like not just about like, oh, only gay people living their only gay life, because our gay life is also colored with straight people and everybody else.
So let's talk about that, because there is the thought by some filmmakers who come from the LGBTQ community. It's like, I owe it to my community to make these either lofty films, or we saw Bros come out. We know what happened to that movie. But it's like, gay, everything's gay filmmaker, put it in every headline. And then there's also the other filmmaker, which, coming from a conservative background like myself, I would be, am I going to limit my career by being a gay filmmaker or covering gay themes? And I know you, documentary-wise, you were like, no, this is who I am, and this is my community. This is what I'm going to represent. So how did you kind of come to that decision, or was it an active decision for you to wonder if some of your themes might be limiting to you?
I didn't think of it that way necessarily. I just thought of it the way that my formative years were spent in Singapore, which is a very conservative place.
Very conservative.
So I'm sure that has filtered into the way that I interact with the gay community and how I see myself in that in the community, but also like in the rest of the world too.
Teenagers?
No, I moved there when I was 19. So like
that's pretty young to move across the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the hardest thing to like adjust to in Singapore?
Oh, no, I'm a huge nerd. No, I loved it. It was great. But no, I had like a great time. I don't know. I had like more reverse culture shock, I think, coming back to North America than like going there. Yeah. I don't know.
What was that decision when you're like, I'm just going to be a filmmaker the way that I want to tell my stories, and not being worried about maybe the commercial success or going mainstream and then going back to the community? You just
honestly, Alexander, it's been kind of a journey in realizing, identifying as a queer filmmaker and telling queer stories, and then realizing like you are also an ingredient in all of this, and being able to tell someone else's story, especially within documentary filmmaking, is it's very delicate. So you almost have to remain sort of in the background, but again, you're a spice in it too. So along the way, I realized that this is an important thing for me, and being more of like a fully realized human being, and it's making Yes I Am has completely changed my life in who I am as a filmmaker and who I am as a human being. It's something that I can't quite put into words, but you kind of follow this path of this feels right, and you carry forward.
I want to talk, what are the biggest challenges right now for independent filmmakers besides finance? That's always going to be a challenge for independent filmmakers. But there's so much content out there right now, and somebody can make a movie on their iPhone. So keeping that in mind, what are some of the biggest challenges that you feel that you have in making your next project or getting to the next level?
Aside from budget, which I think is always, because I want to be more ambitious in the storytelling.
You make your films look and sound amazing on, I don't know what budget that was, but I'm like,
it was not
damn,
enough.
girl, that is a GoFundMe that I've never seen.
But I think it's really like finding your place in the marketplace, and there's so many platforms and there's so much opportunity, but to, really access and find the audience that's going to appreciate the work, I think is still relatively tough because of competition, because a lot of the big streaming platforms are now creating their content like a movie would have been done, right? So
yeah,
there's a lot of opportunities to get onto platforms and to get recognition, but I think to find and connect with the audience is what's, tough to navigate. But these types of situations help with that. So
well, I have to ask you, Albatross has some very dark themes, like we said, and also in Poppies and Aaron, there's this yearning and there's this darkness to everything. It's a beautiful darkness, though. I've always been attracted to that kind of energy. Hearing you in your interviews, seeing you, you're like the nice guy. Where does this darkness come from? And this
we need
dramatic and gothic yearning. It's such a juxtaposition to what I feel from you and from what I've seen. Is there some dark side that we don't know about? Where's it come from?
Probably. There's layers, and I think, but layers, I think, is what's important. And that's the one thing when the trailer for Yes I Am was playing. It's it's so beautiful because that's an illustration of part of the LGBT community that we're not seeing a lot of, right? And I like that because it's a layer. And I think in Albatross, it's a lot of layers. With Poppies, there's a lot of layers to the characters. And I think part of our culture and our society is we look at people in labels and boxes and very binary of you're this or that. Which one are you? You can't be both. I need to process you as a person. So tell me. And I feel that we aren't yes or no, this or that, black or white. We are array of things. And the characters in Albatross, for example, all of them have pluses and minuses. They all have pros and cons. They have likable qualities and not. And part of the fun, part of the fun in the editing process was doing test screenings. And, we have a questionnaire and asking which character did you connect with the most. Everyone chose a different character, and it was that has impacted how they felt about the film.
Yeah.
Because if they connected with one of the characters who might be a more traditional bad guy or villain type, that's because they connected with part of that character they could identify with, the good part, right? And so that I think I infuse that into the work, and that's probably where some of this darkness comes from, because I think we all have something we're yearning for, we desire for, that we're not able to fulfill no matter how happy or successful or whatever we seem to be.
What's the number one thing that you think that you yearn for?
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Oh,
Alex,
we're going there, girl.
Ask another question. I have to think about it.
Well, I'm gonna get back to you.
It is.
I want to know. You don't have to be well, but I think it's so important because I want to know what that yearning is. Because there really is a theme in your films.
Yeah, it would. Oh.
Is it your mom and dad?
Probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
blame the parents.
validation.
Yeah.
What? I don't know. I'm a '90s kid. That's the thing, right?
I want to know, what do you think one of the biggest challenges as a documentarian is? Is it my assumption, or are we seeing less and less documentaries coming out?
Yeah, it is. It's there are fewer and fewer documentaries being released, and it's a market. It's COVID. There's a lag in what's happening within the documentary scene right now, and that's just reality.
Have you ever thought of shifting, okay, maybe it's time for my first feature film?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I hate when people say, "Oh, I just fell into it." I had an idea for my first documentary, Finding Kim, and I did it, which then led into
critically acclaimed.
Thank you.
Very well received.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, a film that it was about a friend of mine who transitioned from female to male at 50, and I thought, let's just show the process. And I had kind of a naivety of expectations, and but I remember premiering it at the Seattle International Film Festival, and there was a line around the block, and I thought, these people can't be in line for my film. No. And I walked up to some guy and I said, "Well, what are you in line for?" And he said, "Finding Kim." And it went on to that film lives and breathes on its own. Yeah. And my firstborn child, and which led to Yes I Am, where was I going with this, Alexander?
Well, no, it's like, so you kind of fell into that, but
Yes.
Would you shift? And maybe let me follow up that question is, what kind of film with an original story would you want to tell?
Yeah. So along the way, I mean, I've produced a lot of commercial work. I worked for Microsoft. I worked for Starbucks for a long time. I've worked for Amazon, always doing this sort of like commercial mentality and paying the bills in that way. But documentary film has informed my human side a lot, and the types of stories that I want to tell. And watching something that Myles did, like that was such a beautiful trailer that just like gives you just enough to that, you know, everyone has the sense of good and bad, and we can be both at the same time. And I think that that's something I identify with is after making 2 documentaries back to back, is like we all want this hero story, but in the end, we are human beings, and we all have good days and bad days, and that's the type of stories that I want to be telling going forward. But I'm open to working on narrative stuff and TV shows, like whatever comes to me, whatever feels right in a very authentic way.
Well, and the reality is sometimes you have to say yes to certain projects. You know, you have to be a yes person in this industry, such as podcasting. I didn't think podcasting was not even in my, that was not in my scope.
Well, how did that start? I mean,
I just stepped into it, and then I had to leave banking because I had to make a choice at one point.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, well, do tell.
Well, no, that's literally it. It's like, do I want to pursue this, which was becoming successful because all I did was ask. I had great PR reps that supported me my very first year. And I would just ask, and we got a lot of yeses.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that, like you said, you just have to do that.
When you said that about Bill Gates, it's like that's exactly the thing. Is a lot. I found a lot of people cancel themselves out of opportunity by not asking, and if you ask, a lot of people and a lot of good people are receptive to exploring that opportunity, right? And I think that's something that I've learned, and I learned that probably in banking more so, like, and then I was able to like
always ask for the business
with confidence. Yeah, is if you don't ask people what they're interested in, what do they want to work on, do you like talent? There's like coming in as a new director, it's like, oh, I can't talk to these people, they're like doing more than me, I can't, like, I have to find where I fit in. And it's like, no, just ask, because you never know. And if people like your idea or what you're working on, like with Poppies, I was so blessed to find a community that helped me elevate that story, right? I came here with a plan of making 2 shorts and a feature and see how things go with film.
That was literally his goal. He says, I'm going to come back to LA, 2 shorts and a feature, and you've done it.
Yeah. But I
feel
did
pretty
it
awesome.
with a bunch of people that I found along the way who can not only take like the idea I have for a film, but then help me elevate it, right? And that's been instrumental to the process.
How did you kind of gain that trust? Because you had to come from being in Singapore to Canada to being in LA. It's like, okay, let's build my network. And you've had to build a lot of networks, even reaching out to Bill Gates. How do you kind of get people's trust to contribute to your idea? I mean, that's a magic in its own.
It is. I live and die by the you find the right people, and sometimes people will fall off along the way, and that's reality, because they also have different versions of what's important to them, and you're not on the same page. However, I have recently found, within, I would say, like the past couple of years, having found this really good collective group of people that I love, I trust, and are talented in ways that I am not, and being able to recognize that and sort of give it up to God. And yes,
well, like you build that kind of team too.
So like I found one thing that is useful for me is when you're asking, like, so the way I started building my network was asking for feedback and advice. I took a few classes at UCLA Extension. And when you're asking for feedback and advice, be really specific in what you want that person to comment on. So for the script of Poppies, I had talked to a few professors or instructors there and asked them. So I asked my producing partner now, Jenny Lutugan, for feedback like, this is a script I've written. I'm going to spend a chunk of money to make this. Should I spend that amount of money on this story? I don't want to know anything else about the story, if you like it or not. Just like, would you spend money to make this type of thing? And she came back with like, yes, you should. And I want to help you because I love it. But if I asked her for like, just tell me what you think, that's not going to elicit any response. You know, if someone asks you like, here's a script, give me your ideas. It's like, what do you want me to tell you?
You have to build the project together. And I like what you said is like,
Yeah.
you also have to be aware of where you kind of fall short, where other people can kind of take in and you can learn. I think we've gotten into such an industry where we're kind of competitive all the time, even with people we shouldn't even be competitive about. And so we stop learning from other people. I really kind of feel that, especially with LGBTQ filmmaking, there's a lot of jealousy in our industry. It's like, why can't we just all help each other? Because then we all succeeded.
Well,
the
and
movie
we
you're
can
doing
all
is not the
win.
movie that he's doing. And it's not what I'm doing. So why don't we just all
No,
support each other?
and we can all win. There's like, there's this fixation with winning and like a limited pie or something.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, your film and the story, even if some of the themes might be comparable, it's a totally different experience. I can watch both. I can enjoy both.
Yeah.
It's not about which one is better. It's about,
Well, I mean, not to go too deep, but
Yeah.
it's the ego. It's the
Yeah.
human ego being able to just take a step to the side and.
But in this industry, we also have to have a healthy ego too.
100%.
well, you have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, if, you know, and that was when you're talking about building your network, like the casting for Poppies, I was getting like really talented professional actors who have a career way beyond what I was doing, but it's about like reaching out. Then we jumped on a phone call and they're like, tell me about this movie and why you're making this. Because
And the first minute of it, and it's first short film. The first minute, I'm like, this is a beautiful film. And I didn't know what was happening. That's what I loved. The first few minutes, you're just kind of taking all this in, and you. And then my favorite is when the music came in when it was the whole pipe scene, because it was about love, but it was about the beauty of the culture. And I know you being in Asia has affected the way that you make films. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, living in Asia for a period of time, it made me realize, and I still firmly believe this, so it wasn't like a temporary thing that was, you know, when I was there, kind of people, we care about the same stuff. We care about family, we care about love, we care about like success in whichever way we kind of value that. But we might go about showing our care for those things in different ways. And I think that's where like a lot of cross-cultural conflict comes from, because, you know, the way one group of people shows love is different than the way we do. So it is bad or wrong or different. And I think that is something that, like, in Poppies I wanted to explore. Was
literally sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
Two of the most different. But we find out that love is the most important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, like, rings true to me. And that's why I love cross-cultural stories. And it's not just about race. I think, like, I like playing with age a lot. Gender, of course. Culture and ethnicity, and I think like socioeconomic status has always been very interesting to me. So I think there's like a lot of these kind of like microcultures and comparing and contrasting. And it's not, I find with my films is I like to put these characters together and let the audience work out how you feel about them. I don't want to tell you which one is right or wrong, because I don't believe in a right or wrong. I believe in like, oh, this really provoked me and I feel uncomfortable. But why? What does that tell me about me? Why? Like, because there's parts in Albatross that, like, I'm watching and I'm like, what happened with this? Like, this actor made me feel very uncomfortable.
Since I wanted to be the character,
Yeah.
like, even though I'm not going to give anything away, otherwise, the, like, matriarch figure of it, I still kind of wanted to be her for a day, you know?
Oh, for sure.
She was just so awful. You just wanted to be, and then but you felt
so
bad
great
for her
at the same time.
She's
She's
a few
trying so
painting
hard
lessons, but
to like keep her life together.
I want to know what both your creative processes are, because, like you mentioned, the projects you make are totally different, but have some of the same themes. When you decide to do a project, are you sketching out an outline? Are you doing research first and making like a vision board, or what's your actual process?
I usually sit down and sort of have this idealized version of the final film. Like, what do I want it to look like? And then I dive into the research. I dive into the main people, the people that can open up the doors to information that will then lead to more research. But from there, God, what do I do? What I usually do is I will shoot a interview just to get a sense of who, where, when, and why, and then I will reconvene, recollect, and is this aligning with my vision? And if it's not, that's fine too. Documentaries will take a life of their own, and you have to be fine with that. There's so many documentaries that end up being terrible because they want it to fit within this.
They bring the wrong piece of the puzzle and try to make it fit. Yep.
Yeah, and it ends up being like uncomfortable and weird, and so many things. But I think that if you can just go with the flow and follow, that's part of my process, is just being able to accept what's happening in front of you, even if you don't like it, which making a documentary, there's going to be a lot of that. It's part of my process, and it's like you start with this gigantic apple, and then you slowly start to carve it, and suddenly you end up with Michael Jackson's face. That maybe not quite that, but
it must be difficult too. Whereas you're making a film, you have your script, you have your shooting schedule. Like, the film's gonna be done more or less in this kind of structure. You uncover more research. You're like, oh crap, we gotta go in this direction. We have to redo some interviews, or we have to now cover this whole part. And it's like, there's no structure to it.
No, there's not. You can have best laid plans, and the 5-year documentary plan is a real thing. Wow. And I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they're like, oh yeah, it's my friend she's working on it's the 12th year, and that's great. But are you enjoying it? Like, I hope you're well funded. That is a reality. Like, when is enough within a film? And I'm a deeply, almost to a fault, empathetic person. And making a documentary, especially something like Yes, I Am, the Ric Weiland Story, it will suck you in and tap all of your everything that you have. And you as a filmmaker and as a human being have to say, this is done, no more, I need to move on, in the way that it feels right and the timing is right. But
that's tough. That must be tough to be like, when's it time to close the door, say no, and move on?
Well, that's when my deeply empathetic self comes in, and it's like, I know that, I feel that it's like, I got all of the stuff, I got all of the ingredients to say, I got a film here. Like, it's all messy right now, but I can rework it and show it to people and say, this is great, this is not great, this is boring, this is whatever, and continue to craft it in a way that is eventually suitable for an audience, and then you deliver it to the world, and you're left like...
Well, sometimes an artist, when you're in a project for too much, you lose sight of the bigger picture, and it's like you just get lost in it, and it doesn't...
Yeah, I mean, and Myles, like, do you have this? Like,
I feel that. For me, it's like I feel that in the writing process, and I feel that in the editorial process, and those are like the two windows where you don't really have a time constraint. Like, in production, you have, as you were saying, like, you're shooting it on this number of days.
You have the actors till this time, and we have the set to this time.
If we don't get it, and I don't have more money, then those scenes are cut from the movie, right? Like, you're not going to shoot it. Whereas in editing or in writing, so with Albatross, it was interesting because like I was like, I gotta write this and I gotta shoot it before there's a second wave of COVID. So it was like I did have a real constraint there in the writing.
You wrote it in a quick.
I wrote it in like a month.
So
like,
what was
really
your creative
fast.
process? You
for that it was I was working like 24/7 because I went back, as you were saying, during the pandemic to my parents' house. So I was at home with my parents for the first time in like 12 years
That
or
must have
13
been so.
years.
As much as like I love my mom,
I do too.
but like going back to that and not being able to like go anywhere
Well,
and after being
at
on
all,
your own
'cause
forever.
it's pandemic. Yeah. No, so it was like
That's a big house though.
Is it a murder mystery?
No, but it's really dark, and it has a lot of this like there's a heavy quality, I think, like in just the film, but that's probably reflective of the time. I mean, we were all locked inside. This house, the dining room, was my office. That's where I was writing the movie, and it's like I knew the house very intimately, so I knew where I could shoot it, how I wanted to shoot it, how we can maximize the space. The house is not that big.
It looks palatial in the film,
but it's
but it still has this claustrophobic feeling because of what the characters are going through.
Yeah.
You feel trapped in this kind of scary house.
But I think part of being able to kind of maximize the production value aspect, this is like the technical side of the story, is like having lived there for so long, knowing how I want to shoot it, working with the DP, Dylan, to like, how are we going to push out this wall a bit? How are we going to make the space bigger? And then from writing it, it was like, okay, I tend to write thematically first and then try to figure out a plot that's going to serve the theme.
What does that mean?
So like I'll think of like in Albatross, for me, it's all about compromises and the repercussions of making compromises, and like the idea of there's all this talk about like living authentically, and what does that mean, and what does it mean if you don't? Because there's situations where I felt like, well, that wasn't 100% me, but I still kind of like banking in Singapore. I still enjoyed like the hell out of living there, but that wasn't my chosen, like it wouldn't have been my chosen career, right? And that type of thing, even though I chose it. So that's whatever. And kind of exploring that theme. And then it was about building, I like characters. So it's about building the characters, putting them together, and then figuring out like, okay, well, I want this thing, but I can't just have like people eating dinner and talking. So like, let's figure out a plot that's going to like explore this theme. And that's kind of what I'm working on with like my other stories. It's like I've got the thematic element, I've got the characters built that I want in this world. I know the world I want to populate. Let's figure out the story that's going to like be the thread line through it. Whereas other writers are probably thinking about plot and then kind of build out a different way. But I had to write it really fast. I was just like, okay, what's a genre? What are the genres in like few locations with few casts? And it was like murder mystery, or like a love triangle type of like Fatal Attraction or something, Knives Out, and just trying to like figure out a way to make a COVID-friendly production that still kind of targeted all the things I want to do as a filmmaker. So it's kind of like a merge of genres, because it's not, there's like a murder, not on this, it's like a
you have to
murder
watch
mystery
it to
film.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
a murder mystery though, but it has those elements in it.
But it's funny because you talk about, you know, making compromise in our life. I
Yeah.
almost saw the two couples at dinner, and still not giving too much away, as foils of each other. Like, this is what happens when you are not true to yourself, true with your other person, and it kind of builds into this place of no return.
Yeah, and it explores like compromises made in the past, compromises at the present, and compromises we might make in the near future. And all of the characters are like either like they've just made a compromise, they made one in the past, it's like inevitable they will do one in the future. And what are they going to do? Are they going to kind of like explore that or not?
What do your parents think?
They liked it. They told me they liked it. I think they liked it. They're very proud. We just had a screening in my hometown in Hamilton. Actually, a couple weeks ago, there was a Hamilton Film Festival, and that was really that was the first time that I've seen it with my parents. First time I've seen it with anyone from my hometown. Like it was a packed 300-seat theater with people that I grew up with, or like friends of my parents and from the community, teachers. And
Is that completely wild for you?
It was the most uncomfortable I've ever felt. Poppies and Aaron, not at all. This one explores much darker content. And I was just sitting there, and it's like all the other festivals we've gone to, I've never sat in a theater and been like, ooh. This was happening. I was like, oh my gosh, what does everyone think of that?
Isn't it funny? The people that, not that this is what happened, but the people that judge us the most are people that we've known forever. You know, strangers will love what we do, but
feel that they judge us the most. Because that's where I was saying like about going into banking. I don't necessarily think the pressure was accurate. I felt it. Yeah. Was it imposed? I don't know. Had I asked?
Maybe your next one will be about a banker.
Oh, that's Poppy. Poppy is that kind of route.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where can
I
we
need
watch?
his phone number, by the way. Oh, gorgeous. Damn, I was like, Poppy. But the headlines were so
That's
cute
the
because it was like
sequel.
Hamilton director comes home to film, his feature. The headlines were very cute.
Yeah.
Especially like the local papers.
And it was actually great. So like when we were filming it, even though it was my like parents' house, the house I grew up in, they moved out for 2 months while we were making the movie.
I was gonna
So they
say,
came to set.
Where did they move? Were they?
They went to like a cottage for a couple months, and it was really kind of interesting. They came one day to set just to see what's going on, but it was great to show them the final film because it's like they didn't know what we were doing.
Of course,
for 2 months, right?
Okay, we're gonna do a little hot topics before we retire for the evening. I want to know, and I think I've asked you this in an interview, but I want you to tell our audience, what film would you want to reboot if you had unlimited budget, or what like new story would you want to tell?
Who's going first?
I have to think about this one, Alexander. I usually hate reboots, but
Yeah.
I have been pleasantly surprised lately.
I know the Wednesday Addams Show is not a reboot, but it's really well done.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a reboot. I think I don't know. But.
I would love a continuation of Death Becomes Her, like what happened to Madeline and Helen, like where
hilarious.
like what happens after they fall down the stairs at the end of the film.
And that would be so different than anything you've ever done.
Yeah, and please hire Goldie Hawn, and
She'll do it. Meryl probably wouldn't, but Goldie will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you asked me that before, it was like I'm not a big fan of reboots and stuff, but I really like movies from the 90s and like drama. They just don't make them anymore. So like something like Mrs. Doubtfire I think would be amazing, but it doesn't need, in my opinion, to be rebooted. But that would be the type of film I think could be.
I think it's a playwright. I was looking up plays.
It was
recently.
a musical.
Is it?
That didn't do so well.
Oh, really?
Part of it was COVID. Part of it, they say the music wasn't that great.
I thought you meant originally, and I was like, that was a musical.
No.
before a movie?
But you know, with our cancel culture, making that movie would be very difficult.
Oh my
No,
God,
that's
no.
why I'm
Because-
like there's like I think the movies in the 80s and 90s explored topics way more provocatively than we can today because of, there's a lot of like trolling that I think ruins content.
But even like we're so angry, we're so ready to be angry. Like Mrs. Doubtfire, it's not about identity. He just was cross-dressing to get to his kids. Like literally, that's all he was doing. But in today's generation, we're like, oh my God, a man is cross-dressing and he's not non-binary and blah blah blah.
But they kind of cover that in the movie in a way that it's like, how dare you dress up as a woman, and you're gonna be basically he's arrested. They go to court.
Because it's an indecent, it's a more immoral thing to do.
Yeah, well, especially during that time. But
I just opened a whole can of worms.
Yeah, that's like a whole other thing. Has the boom in like gay Hallmark movies or big budget movies like Bros, Fire Island, has it changed your vision of what movies you want to make next?
Yeah, I loved Bros and I loved Fire Island. I think that both of those films were funny and engaging and in ways thought-provoking. And I had moments with Bros where I was like, am I in on the joke or am I not in on the joke? I was like, is this Naked Gun or is this...
I love the first 20 minutes of the film because it was actually making fun of our wokeness. And I'm not saying we should be making fun of our wokeness, but we should be able to bring a little joy to it.
Yeah, we should be able to laugh at ourselves a little bit.
100%. Because the jokes that they were saying are jokes I've made with my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do have to challenge each other to not be rude.
No, yeah, all of that.
But it's like, this is how we talk. And so why can't we enjoy that and take pleasure in it? And then it got super woke on its own. I'm like, well, you're defeating the purpose of what the whole message of this movie was.
And it's like preaching to the choir a little bit
100%.
sometimes, right? I think these films, I think it's great. And there's a pendulum, right? Like, I think we need representation. So I think we need to have a lot of content that depicts the LGBTQ plus community. And I think it's also important to not troll it, because that's something we're also very critical and very analytical of ourselves, that it's not going to be 100% reflective of every single experience I've had as a gay person.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a lot of the comments that I read about these stories is like, well, that's not what it's like for me. And it's like, okay, but that's what it's like for some people. So like, I don't understand where all this kind of like self-hate comes from.
We kind of had a fight on last week's show saying that we should just support whatever content is out there because it's LGBTQ. And I'm like, no. We need to challenge ourselves. It got a little heated, I will tell you.
That's I agree with. But there's space for all of it is what I'm trying to say. And I think like eventually the quality and like we'll maybe like fine tune and finesse and we'll find like place for stories that are.
But we should be able to say, hey, the acting was terrible in this, the writing was terrible, the directing was terrible, even if it's you know. But I think like now everybody's afraid. We're so afraid.
Let's just make movies.
Thank you. What are your guilty pleasure movies or TV shows that you're watching right now?
I don't know if it's guilty pleasure, but I don't know if my husband's half-ass watches it. He will kind of like occasionally look over, but I love the new White Lotus.
Love the new season.
Yeah, I don't think it's a guilty pleasure. I think
no.
It's
Okay.
Good old TV.
Yeah, it's really good TV. Better than the first season. First season, I was like, more white people. No offense, white people.
Guilty pleasure. I recently rewatched Who's That Girl, and I gotta say, like Madonna's best movie maybe ever, next to Desperately Seeking Susan.
Oh, okay.
Who's That Girl, folks?
I don't even know what that movie is.
Who's That Girl?
It's a Madonna movie? I didn't get into Madonna until Ray of Light. That was my first exposure to Madonna, for real.
What?
Yeah, I didn't listen to her vote. I didn't listen to any of that. I was the worst gay. I'm just the worst.
Okay. We're going to have a movie night with Who's That Girl?
Have you ever heard this film?
Okay, then.
Okay.
Right now, I think I'm watching Ally McBeal, which is probably a bit of a guilty pleasure indulgent. I've been introduced to, so
that
like
brought a lot of themes up, though.
That sounds terrible.
Early.
No, really, Ally McBeal, like.
It brought up some.
Well,
really
you asked
hot
for guilty
topics.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having
I'm watching all the other good stuff, but guilty pleasure is like the one that is like you shouldn't be watching.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
I can't stand watching Callista Flockhart for more than 2 minutes on anything. But
all the other cast, all the other supporting cast, And
we forget that show kind of changed TV making at that time.
Well, my husband liked it, so he's rewatching it. So I'm seeing in the background, and like I think it's the final season, last episode's Christina Ricci's walking on, and I'm like, amazing.
And Ally McBeal?
Yes.
Oh, now I'm gonna watch it. Now I'm gonna watch it.
Never watched it. Yeah.
How can you put a show down you didn't watch?
Yes. But it's great. And before that, I'm getting reintroduced to a lot of like older shows. So Melrose Place, which I had never seen.
Also terrible. Yeah.
But
awful,
those
but guilty
were
pleasure.
it sucks
Hot
you
boys,
in.
cat
It
fights.
does, yeah. Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
90210.
That's what the question was.
Yes.
I answered it.
Sorry.
He wanted to ask, what relevant show are you watching today?
What about you, Alexander?
Charmed is one of my guilty pleasures.
Okay.
And it's on
Same
in the mornings
world.
while I'm usually like getting up and off my hangover, but it's usually Charmed because it's so bad. But I love it. What is your biggest wish for the LGBTQ entertainment community?
That wasn't like we have to be on Pride Month. Like it has to be just on Pride Month. Like that it can actually exist. These stories can exist all the time, all day, every day. And I really think that with films like Myles' film and Yes I Am, that it's really based in human stories and how folks will just show up and say, "Oh my God, like I didn't know that it was a gay movie," but that's
no, and that's I think for like to kind of piggyback off of that, it's like when you have a gay character, and I'm sure every minority group probably feels this way. Like I don't want their trauma to just come from that experience. Like the character's arc isn't just that they're gay and trying to find their way in the world, like or something, right? And I think that's like
it makes us victims in a lot of those stories.
But a victim because of who you are.
But like powerless victim, like we were victim
yeah.
as a community, but like we're here today.
That's
we
why I
overcame
want to
that.
like move past
100%.
that, where it's like, no, my struggle's just that work sucks, and like
Yeah.
I want to get a promotion.
Yeah.
I had a bad date. I had a bad threesome.
You did?
Yeah.
It wasn't a foursome.
Oh.
It's probably me in the corner with a martini. Like, are we done? Too old for this. All right, Aaron, tell everybody where they can find you and follow you and get tickets for the screening, by the way.
Instagram, Aaron_Bear, BEAR. And then Better World is kind of like a new up-and-coming giving platform. betterworld.ricweiland.org.
Actually, it's ricweiland.betterworld.org.
I think if you just search Better World Ric Weiland,
because I typed it in.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Today, yeah.
Thanks. See.
Yeah.
Not only am I running the lights,
pretty
I'm also. But yes, there and also anywhere in the world.
And this screening coming up, this is the last time it's really going to be screened in public, and then you have to stream it at home.
Yes, and then after this last public screening, working on the last distribution deal that will then eventually be released into your TV.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today.
you.
As always, we had some fun in Palm Springs on the night.
We
That
did?
was insane. Myles, tell everybody where you want them to find you and follow you, and where can we watch your films?
On Instagram, Myles Yaksich, so just my name. My website's harborviewpictures.com. And Albatross, I think you said you have like the card or something that
It's
has
literally
all the platforms,
everywhere.
but it's everywhere.
Just put Albatross
so,
movie, and it'll.
Yeah. But Apple, Amazon, and Spectrum, DirecTV, all those places.
And I would say watch Albatross first, and then I would say go back and watch Poppies and Aaron, because it's fun to see kind of where it came
like
from.
where it started.
Yeah,
after,
and a lot of the same themes.
Yeah.
I love
Great,
it.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We're
Thank
talking about filmmaking. And that's all, folks. It's always a grab bag of fun here every week on The Rocks. Big thank you to our engineer, Tony Sweet, our social media clip editor, Alexis Mendez. Coming up, we have in studio, visiting from New York, the Skivvies. If you've never seen the Skivvies perform, they're here to bring some holiday music live in our studio. We also have Bronwyn Wyndham Burke from Bravo TV's Real Housewives of Orange County. She's coming to spill the reality TV about reality TV and talk about her sobriety on The Rocks. I know, insane, but we're going to do it. Please like, share, subscribe so we can continue bringing this fabulous programming coming your way for free. Until next time, stay happy, stay sexy, stay healthy. I almost said something else. Stay tipsy.
Just stay.
Just stay, bitch. Don't leave me.
On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.